When I was in high school, I got into a pretty heated discussion with a classmate on if suicide was a sin that automatically sent you to hell. And I remember this point so distinctly because he was so resistant and also so self assured that you don't go to hell, that it's not a thing. I was so certain. And he asked me, where is that in the Bible, right? And I then went and investigated, and I couldn't find anything that had to do with suicide being an automatic ticket to hell. That was the first experience I ever had of reclaiming my independent thinking. You see, I had been immersed in the common Christian myth, and one of the many millions of beliefs and tenets is that suicide is a sentence to hell. It wasn't something I ever questioned. It wasn't something I felt. It felt like it was true. And yet I had never really thought through it. I had never really critiqued it. So when it comes to the common Christian myth, right, the whole myth is supported and founded by beliefs and images and assumptions. I don't know where I first heard that suicide was this unforgivable sin, but it was in me. There are a lot of things like this, by the way. The common Christian myth really keeps us from thinking because there are prescribed verses, beliefs that help us to bypass having to process complex realities or hold tension in opposite experiences. The common Christian myth really seeks to simplify and create a black and white paradigm where we don't have to do a lot of thinking. We can move towards the light and avoid the dark or avoid what is hidden. So this reclaiming work really requires us to get in touch with an authentic way of processing and thinking. And Connie Zweig says in her book, Meeting the Shadow on the Spiritual Path, about this. She says, I suggest that we cultivate the faith to doubt, the trust or confidence to explore more fully and honestly what we actually believe. Our forbidden thoughts can show the way. They can guide us toward the shadow, where, like hidden treasure, our disowned ideas, opinions, and doubts lie dormant. So, the common Christian myth often requires us to sacrifice our thoughts. There's even a verse for this. God's ways being higher than ours, his thoughts being higher than our thoughts. So our thoughtfulness, our thinking, our processing ultimately is not the most reliable source. So we actually have to move towards an external realm of authority. Now, to some degree, there's this truth in there, right? That our rational brain, our thinking, and our processing may be insufficient, right? When we're going through a transition in life, when we are being initiated into another stage of life, from being single to being partnered, from not having kids, from being a working, contributing member of society to retiring and moving towards this kind of last quarter of life. All of those experiences require a sacrifice of the previous identity, the previous ways that we imagined our life and our reality. But that is all in service to this more whole sense of self that is pushing up through the surface. The common Christian myth actually requires that we sacrifice the thing that's pushing up from the surface. It requires that we sacrifice the core essential parts of us that are unfolding in order to realign ourselves with the status quo, with what is expected of us. So here's the practice that I want to invite you into. Ask yourself, what do you doubt? What do you doubt about God, about the divine, about yourself? What do you doubt about your marriage or your partnership or other relationships? What do you doubt about your career, your job, or a sense of calling? Take some time and journal out what rises to the surface for you. Notice where or what you feel in your body, because thinking and feeling, which we'll get to in the next video, are connected. Pay attention to your body and how different thoughts land inside of your body. Do certain thoughts bring about a sense of completion? Maybe it doesn't relieve you and make you feel excited, but it brings about a sense of catharsis, a forward motion or motion at some level. How do your thoughts land in your body? And then I want you to take a step of faith, if you will, right? Write out what you actually believe. Maybe it's what you actually believe, or maybe it's what you aspire or desire to believe, and you can't quite believe it just yet. But having that faith to doubt, or ultimately that faith to believe that which feels just out of reach, that's the step of reclaiming our independent thinking. And any time that you're reclaiming your independent thinking from the common Christian myth, it will feel like you are stepping outside of the safety zone. You will be called names if you publicize this, heretic, or it's transgressive. But in order to grow, Jung said, we must transgress. And so holding that transgressiveness in front of you and choosing to step toward it and just see, that is the work of reclaiming our independent thinking.